I was so paranoid, I used to sleep with my gun with the safety off, it'd have to be close to me. Cocaine was my main thing. You know, there was a lot of physical abuse in there, violence. It was armed robberies, it was hijacking.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Marvin and Herbert's Nothing But The Truth podcast, hosted by myself, Christian Morgans. As always, we're delighted to have another fantastic guest with us today. Today we're joined by Stephen Gillen. Hi Stephen, thank you for being here today, and how are you?
Hi Christian. Nice to meet you. Hi, brother. Nice to meet you. But thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. So Stephen's just brought out his first book, his autobiography, The Monkey Puzzle Tree. All links will be below, but we'll get there in due time because impossible. We want to go back to the start of your journey to see what created you into the person you are today, if possible. So if we could go back to your childhood, if possible, Stephen, you were brought up in Ireland, weren't you?
Yeah, I was born here, but I was taken over to Belfast, where my family come from, my maternal family, when I was 9 months old. So I was taken over there, and basically I was left there. And my mother, she come back to England. It was very tough in them days to make a life for us, really, make a life, you know. This was the early 70s, you know, in the middle of the Civil War there, you know, the IRA and the paramilitaries and all that was really going at it. So that was the environment of the time. And I stayed there till I was 9. And my maternal aunt, who was like my mother then, she died sadly of cancer there. She was a wonderful kind person. So the men of the family thought I needed a woman's hand again, you know, and because of the trouble and whatnot. I come back to England, and you know I come back to London from that point. But I went through a very traumatic care system because I was fostered.
But prior to obviously leaving Ireland, obviously the impact of your mum putting you in Ireland, that must have had a severe impact on you as such. Obviously, even with your auntie and stuff like this being it, must have left you with...
It was very tough, Christian, yeah. You know, you have to remember that the people I was left with was wonderful people. This was the first thing. I was a young kid, I didn't know anything else about the world. You know, you think it's normal, these bombs, like all these guys, you know, civil war on the street. You don't have a experience of life.
Yeah.
I was very sheltered because of that, obviously. You know, so I had a magical childhood in a kind of a sense. I was very sheltered.
Yeah.
Whereas in the back garden there, you know, there was a monkey puzzle tree in the back of the garden. I was basically one of the kids who'd be at the window looking out at the other kids and wanting to go out and play with them, but wasn't allowed out, pretty much. Sometimes I was, but not really. So, yeah, it was very magical, but I see a lot of stuff there, you know. I see a lot of horrendous things there.
Yeah, which obviously must have impacted you as your life went on, and must have obviously slightly shaped you to be the person you are today through seeing all those troubles, maybe by being left by your mum in Ireland, even though you had obviously your family around you. That must have left something maybe missing at the time, and then obviously getting brought over to England at 9 years old, did you say? 9, yeah. So yeah, you had quite a crazy first 9 years of your life, and obviously they say the first 7 years are what really shapes you as a person. Shapes your
character.
Yeah.
You know, Chris, I mean, apart from what, you know, I have to say it how it is, apart from the wonderful environment I had in the house, you know, my family members, it's in the book, for instance. I come out one night, I got caught up in one of the riots. You know, I had to hide under a hedge. I was a young child. I was terrified. I was about 7. You know, it was suppression fire. It was the full hit up and down the road. It was mental. Cars burning, the whole bit. And you know, I see someone getting shot in front of me. You know, it was only young himself. You know, he'd kind of been more than 19, 20. You know, he died in front of me. That was horrendous for me. You know, he died calling for his mother. So this, you know, I never spoke about this stuff in any detail, probably 6 years ago, to be honest with you. But of course, this is a program.
At a young age, wasn't it?
Absolutely, this was a terrible thing to witness.
So you came over at 9 years old, you said, and this wasn't even to be with your mother. This was you got brought over and put into the care system, you said, or into the foster system. Whereabouts did you come to? Was it London you came to at 9? Or?
I come to London, and then I was moved around. You know, I was moved around in places like Watford, Stevenage, all kinds of places in these homes. that was very traumatic too, because they was like prisons, really. I mean, the places I was sent to, there was girls and boys in there. Some of them had been through a lot of trauma. There was a lot of physical abuse in there, violence.
Yeah.
I never see a lot of sexual stuff as such, but really violence. I should try and protect some of the younger ones, but I was I was a small kid, so I was up for it all the time. And they used to drag you around the place. I mean, they knocked me out enough times, smashing me head against the wall and all that, dragging me on the concrete, all this kind of thing. And they'd lock us up in places, and all this stuff. So it not good.
And so it's you never really settled, even when you came to London as such. It was all over the place, it sounds like. So it didn't help your environment, especially from what you came from. It was almost a much worse environment. You had your auntie and your uncles in Ireland, and you came over, and it wasn't much worse. It got worse, did you say?
Yeah, I think the trouble started for me really when I come back to this country, to be honest with you. Because, I was a young kid, I was cast adrift, I was feral, I had to look after myself. I was a very anxious child. My response to that was to be more. Be more gamer, be the one up the front.
Yeah.
And that became a pattern. So, I spoke funny then. I was only a young kid, I was different.
When you was in Ireland, was you from 9 months old? Did you say you was in Ireland?
Yeah, as a baby.
So from when you got took over by your mum, you was 9 months old when you went back to Ireland, yeah.
Yeah.
So you basically the first 7 to 9 years of your life, you got brought up in Ireland. So you didn't know no different than Ireland. At 7 years of age, that was your normality, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So it was coming back here that would have been the trauma, because obviously that trouble stuff, where you're sheltered from it and then protected and then brought back here to something that isn't amazing and getting moved around so many places, that in itself is traumatic, because I've been through that myself in the care system. Do you know what I mean? Because you never know what the next house is going to be like, what the people are going to be like, how you're going to get treated. So that anxiety, which is repeated time and time again, was a massive factor in my sort of development as a bad kid. Do you know what I mean? So I can relate to that.
Yes, very, yeah.
And because I was going to ask that, where you almost being the naughty kid as such when you came over, because you were the odd one out. You had the Irish accent when you came over. You didn't have brothers.
I certainly felt that way, and I was very anxious because, the same thing that Marvin was saying there. This makes for a very anxious, because you're not stable is one thing. You're always on the move. You're cast adrift. You have to deal with it anyway, obviously. And you don't have any experience of the world. You're just a little child, so you're up against it at that point. It's about survival, really, at that point.
And like you said, you'd been very much kept in a nestled environment. Then when you got brought across it, it's the complete opposite. And then around naughty children, like saying, then you're trying to impress these children who have been through certain trauma at a young age. Then everyone's had it where you're trying to fit in, and so you try and do.
Trying to belong, Chris. Yeah, it's more trying to belong.
100%.
Because as human beings, we all want to be liked in some kind of way. That's the truth.
Yep.
We all want to belong, and be needed is even more to that, right? So we forge our own family units.
Yep.
You have had this, Marvin. Certainly, I know that. Sometimes they're not the best things for us, they can be unhealthy. But we are happy to choose that at that point, because it's like a family to us, right? Yeah.
And so did your mother come into your life at all when you came back here in your teenage years, or as you grew up in your adolescence?
She did, she did. But the fact was, I was beyond the beaten path then, really. And I was, for instance, I was just so bad. I was like a one-man crime wave. I mean, it was nonsense in them years. But I was caught, police, running away. That I went to DC. They put off the court case until after my 14th birthday, so they could send me to DC, and put me away. But I'd been given a care order before that, so I was already under the local authority.
Yeah, so it goes back saying then you weren't doing very well at school at those times there, when obviously you're getting in trouble in courts at 14, then obviously school was out the window. You did.
It's weird, because you know what, I was always a bright kid. I never had no problem back doing my lessons. I was really quick, I could work it out, but I had other problems.
Yep.
And of course I was never settled, so I could never really do anything.
Yeah, well, the two things aren't connected to the intelligence, because sometimes, like say, people do stuff to try and fit in. It's got nothing to do with intelligence, stuff like this. A lot of clever kids are in the wrong path and ends up, through their insecurities at time, end up going down a real troubled path, and then before they know it, it's...
I think it's more with growing up. It's yearning for that love and that acceptance and that belonging that makes you strive that little bit further to fit in. You know, so what I was going to ask, did you experience the racism being Irish with the Irish accents when you come back here? Did that play any factor in?
That's a good question, because at them times it was
no blacks, no dogs, no
no
Irish.
dogs, no Irish was the thing. The IRA was still at war. It's the simple thing of it. So there was a lot of stuff going on, you know, and there's these different sides in any war, and people had to, you know, the ump, right, about stuff. But yeah, so there was that kind of, if you was stout or you spoke funny or anything, and you was no good.
Yeah.
You know, this is where people were starting from, which of course is bollocks.
Well, kids are terrible, aren't they? If anyone who's the odd one out, if there's anyone who's something different, they...
Well, it's like when travellers are in the school, isn't it? When travellers are in the school, they get the pikey behaviour, the slandering, the taking the piss, you ain't got a house, you live in a caravan. You know, like, so that's a form of racism itself. So
Absolutely.
every Irish person back then would have been sort of
Tarred with that same brush.
Yeah, tarred
Absolutely.
with the traveller
Yeah.
brush, or you're stinking paddy, or city Irishman, and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, why I asked if you experienced it, because I work a lot with trauma. The trauma that I went through as a kid, I replaced with trauma to fit in, without dealing with the actual underlying issues of the trauma that I'd faced, but through therapy or counselling or help. Yeah, you just think, well, I've got to fit in. How do I fit in? Well, I'll tell you what I'll do this because everyone will notice me. Was that similar sort of pattern with you?
I think, yeah. I think that really, when you get down to it, it's just the same kind of stuff. Because even though we get into this, I know I've been through a lot of the same thing. Our journeys will be very similar. And I'm starting to see that now as this unravels. And yeah, we compensate. Certainly when we don't have the skills, or we're feared up, or we're unsure, or we're uncertain, or we're anxious, or we're up against it, especially at that age, then we definitely compensate, and with stuff like this, yeah. And, you know, I had immense trauma, so there was definitely, you know, there's loads of stuff in the press always about my transformation, you know, and they always ask, what is the epiphany? What is this eureka moment? I say to them, no, you know, there were many. You know, there were many, but there's a process here, because there's a lot of trauma, you know, and I had a lot of cancer. I had to go through, you know, I had to jump all them fences along the way, because I had to deal with me, you know, and that's the beginning of change. So absolutely, yeah.
So in your teenage years, Stephen, what were your aspirations when you got older? Were there any aspirations, or was it day-to-day living at that point? Yeah.
The truth is, you know, and I always say it how it is, I was a petty criminal, but I progressed really quickly into serious crime.
Yeah.
You know, there was no doubt about this. You know, it is what it was. The providence is there. You know, I ran a lot of gangs. You know, I was hanging around with a lot of different people, you know, in the East End and West London.
So sorry to cut you. These were your aspirations, and at the time you were trying to be a villain.
I was a career criminal. There's no doubt. In them early times, I was a career criminal.
So when you're in your teenage years and you're first getting in trouble, there was no aspiration thinking of, right, I might be an accountant. I know it sounds far, or might be this professional, might do this. When you'd already decided that I'm on this path. It's a path of crime, and that was your aspiration as such.
The truth is, yeah, you know, there's no point dressing up, but there's more to this. There's more to this in the sense that I didn't know any better. I know that sounds like that, but you kind of get boxed into a life like that.
Yeah, just trying to sort of figure out the mindset.
You get boxed into it,
as a teenager.
And as you keep compounding them choices, we create our own reality. So we're forging ourselves by people, places, and things what we're going to become anyway. So when you keep choosing this stuff, and of course where I was always doing more, a little bit more, or seeing more than everyone else. I'm still the same now, but it's all healthy. It's all in business. It's all in creation. But I was the same then. I always see more than maybe the people around me. So I was always more extreme.
And so I'm guessing you were hanging around with older children at that time there, or as a young man, you were probably hanging around with young men
pretty much, very much so, yeah.
Led you on the path and stuff, and maybe influenced you to do certain things. And by hanging around with older people, it sort of really accelerates the progression, doesn't it? Unfortunately. So, talk to me about how you slid from being a petty criminal into more serious crime. What sort of crimes were you doing at these times, Stephen?
We was kids who was feral, who was street kids, who was out on the road all the time, and in them days we was very prone towards robbery, and it'd be snatches at banks and things like that, and then the progression would be up, and then there'd be more serious, and then there was the drugs thing and contraband and all that stuff. There was counterfeiting. We were career criminals, right? But it was more prone because we was more like robbers.
What was your first nicking?
What, my very first nicking as a kid?
Yeah.
I think it was for theft or TDA, to be honest with you. Something like that. I can't even remember.
Yeah, starts with that.
Something like that.
So was there any child detention? Did you go to any? Were you in the system?
I went to Send, yeah. I went to Send when I was 14. That was the first time I went away.
14 years old. And how long was that for?
3 months.
3 months.
Short, sharp shock.
Short, sharp shock. It was like the army camp.
But did it work
right?
for you? Was it a strong enough shock, unfortunately?
It didn't work, did it, Chris?
No.
It didn't work, and it was... I mean, it's hard when a kid goes in there, a young kid, They're not playing games in there, and all I see around me was a load of skinny kids, really. And then they're doing all the marching thing and all the rest of it because we're only kids. But some of them, people I was with there, it become notorious later on. There was a few people there, I won't say names, but, in the broad Water Farm riots and other people who would go through all the system with me.
Yeah, from the young age, it's terrible, isn't it? It's
a few I would go all the way through with, right, up until category A.
And so, whereabouts were you based at this time, Stephen? Where were you living in London when you sort of came out?
Then I was when I got to 14, I was in homes. Because I didn't, I think I got released from that care order. I think it was about 15 or something like that, 16.
Where did you go from there? Was it back into the homes or?
No. I was in East London, but I've lived all over London. I've lived in South London. I spent a lot of time in West London, but East London.
Yes, and. So what sort of crimes did you get into? When did it turn into sort of hard crime when you got out, or was it still sort of petty stuff and opportunist sort of stuff? It wasn't specific crime, like you say. It was a bit of everything at that time there, whether it be robberies, whether it be drugs, counterfeiting. It was just an opportunist criminal at that time there mindset.
Yeah, and I was always around people, and my family, members of my family were very, they were older. They were very, very into very serious criminality.
Yeah.
Hijacking post office vans, security vans, all this stuff. And in them days, there was a lot, a collection of different robbers who would work together. But some had gone to school together, or we'd know each other, or someone would know someone, or someone had done a bit of work with someone. This is the way it was in the East End, just the way it is. Bits of work would come up. But it's very clannish, that kind of thing, especially.
So whereabouts in East London did you get brought
Old
up?
Bethnal Green Road.
Bethnal Green Road?
Old Bethnal Green Road.
Old Bethnal Green Road. Who's your age? Stephen and Jack Ramadan.
Jack's in here in the book.
Yeah.
Jack's in the book there, look. Jack. There's Jack there, look. Very, very, very good friend of mine, Jack. There's Jack Ramadan now. I was going to mention Jack, yeah? He's a very good friend of mine, Jack, but he does all the boxing, and he's a very good friend of mine. Yeah, I know that family very well. I grew up with all of them, yeah.
So you were released at 15 years old, and like you said, there was no sign of getting on the straight and narrow, and so you living day to day, opportunist criminal, and then when was your next brush with the law, or serious brush, or was it everyday brush with the law, trying to live it on your toes?
It was very serious because it progressed very, very serious in them days because we'd have the firearms. So we was in gangs who would be doing things, but would be a little firm together. It'd be 5, 6 of us.
What age did you come across firearms? What age was this? Sort of
16, 17, very, very, very early on. We was, I was exposed to this because I was around the people and the older ones. Very, very early.
You're older, lot.
Huh?
Was Jack older than you?
Jack's the same age as me, give or take, about a year.
Yeah, 'cause he's got an older brother.
Stephen.
Stephen, that's it. So I was in Parkhurst with Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen, yeah. Yeah, Stephen.
And so when the guns started to come on to the scene, obviously I'm guessing your criminality must have increased then. Was there armed robberies and stuff like this even at that young ages? Or the whole
my experience of guns, Christian, is once you start that, it's very dark. From then on, it gets very dark. I mean, who catches who first and all this bullshit. The paranoia and the fear, even though you're in this bubble of what you think you're in your own head of what you're living a good life, really it's bullshit because you can be nicked at any moment, which means you go away with double big sentences. But in many ways that's the least of it because you'd have fallouts with certain people who are very serious. You don't really know what they're thinking, but they're very capable people. And there were a few times I missed very, very serious stuff.
Trying to think of your mindset back then. You weren't living the dream as such. It was very much the anxiety still there, still living a crazy mindset, looking over your shoulder, worrying every day, worrying about getting caught by police, worrying by your rivals catching you. There doesn't sound like there was much glamour in it then.
It's you'll respond to this. You get this as well. It's crazy madness. Because you get kind of boxed into this life anyway, manoeuvred into it, but you manoeuvre yourself into it, that's the truth. But there you are, and really there's no out. There's no out. Of course there is, but in your head there ain't. There just ain't, right? So you keep repeating these actions, right? And it's crazy because you have this kind of holy grail thing in your head thinking, it's always going to be all right, I'm not going to be nicked, I'm clever enough to get out of it, the next big thing, and I'm going to go to Spain and fuck them. It's rubbish, basically. But this is what you think. Yeah. Because, of course, you've got to make yourself feel better because how you're living is horrendous. I used to sleep with... I was so paranoid. I used to sleep with my gun with the safety off. It'd have to be close to me. That's how paranoid I was. Imagine a life like that.
What was you paranoid of, though?
Well, the truth is in them days... we would have fallouts with people over certain things, over money, over certain things, right? Violence, fallouts, fights, whatever. And, it'd get very serious. They'd have firearms as well.
Was you under investigation for any of them fallouts?
All the time. Marvin, look, in them days, in that kind of bracket of that from the younger time, and I was in and out of prison, going up to my early 20s where I got nicked and the shots was fired by the police. Yep. We was under robbo all the time. They'd come onto us, come off us. We used to feel it. I'd know it. I'd come out of my house and I'd feel it. And then I'd be looking for strange things happening around me. And I'd say they're honest. It was like they was always honest. But I knew they wasn't because they'd need to have the funding. But they'd come and go and come and go. So, it was all this game... that was part of the life.
All robberies you was under investigation? Was there any shootings and murders and stuff? Or was it just robberies?
I'm sure that there was a lot more going on behind the scenes. Because I had friends of mine, I've had a few friends of mine have been murdered, along the way, who was very close to me. And, so that's very possible.
Can you talk about them? They're not here, they're dead.
Well, I had one friend. He went down to Glasgow. And he went down there. On the drugs thing. He had 6 kids. He was found. Shot in the head down there, face down. It's just going back. That? Well, it's a friend of mine. I don't want to. I don't want to say the name here at the moment. People in the East End would know who that is, right? Okay. And there's been a few along the way. And, there's been a few. Some names, of even people who, people don't think, they haven't, You know, it's not confirmed that they've even been killed yet, but people know that they are. But they're missing, right? We haven't seen them, right? You know, there's a few in there. You know, Gilbert Whitner. There's many.
Do you know Gilbert?
I knew Gilbert. Yeah.
How well do you know Gilbert?
Well enough. Not that well, but well enough. I met him a few times on certain things. That was.
So for people who don't know, who is Gilbert? Who you guys talk about? Is that Gilbert Winters? Is it?
Yeah.
And obviously he got murdered.
Well, he hasn't. Well, he hasn't been.
Another missing one, is it?
He hasn't been seen. You know, there's a lot of stuff. You know about Gilbert, but you know, I knew Gilbert. You know, and I don't know. Who am I? I don't know. I don't know what happened to Gilbert apart from he disappeared. Yep. That's just an example. Yeah. That's just an example.
How much bird did you spend?
I've done about 20 years behind the door. I went to the Old Bailey 3 times on trials.
What was your longest?
17.
Is that, so you got a 14 and a 17?
I got a 14 and a 3 for possession of a firearm, which was outstanding. So they made that consecutive. They made that consecutive.
So the 14.
So I got a 14. I got 69 years with all firearms with intent to endanger life.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
So you went away. You got a 14-year sentence and then a 3-year consecutive, which is a 17.
Which is the 17. Yeah.
So it wasn't a 14 and a 17. It was just a 14 and a 3.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
And so, leading up to what you're up to, leading up to that, I'm guessing you're involved in serious crimes then, which obviously led up to the day of the serious incident then in your 20s. What sort of crimes were you getting up to? Was it armed robberies, post offices? Or?
It was armed robberies. It was hijackings. You know, it was lorries. A lot of gun stuff. There was counterfitting. You know, all this kind of stuff. Racketeering in a big way, but it was very, very geared towards the serious stuff, of the guns, robbery, this kind of stuff.
Okay, so can you talk us through the day when you got when the serious incident happened, and what happened and what led up to that day, and just talk us through what your plan was?
I had 3 trials at the Old Bailey for armed robbery. This is the first thing you need to understand. 3 trials. The first one was in the City of London, where they rammed the car, you know, and they said I threw a gun under the car and all this stuff, and we was nicked, and there was 3 of us in the car, and they found all stuff in the car. And they found all other stuff in Bethnal Green. They raided houses, found his stuff, Valence Road and all this stuff. Went to trial. South London people. This was South London people, yeah. Went to trial. Got not guilty, but I got 3 years possession of a firearm.
Yep.
Second time we went again, you know, attempted robbery. I beat that. We was on remand twice for both of these. You know, the first time, you know, I beat that. I still had that sentence for the firearm on the first one, but I had a son. I had my first son in between this time, so they gave me a home leave. So I went out on home leave, but I didn't come back. You see, you know, I went out to a really hot environment in the East End, in the sense a lot of the people who was around me, my family, very, very close to me, was all nicked for £1 million conspiracy with security vans.
Right? What year was that?
This is going back in the early 90s. Early 90s.
And then, so you'd end up going on the run, and it was during this time there was a trial in your absence, was there, or? And then...
No, this was the environment I come out to, right? You know, so there was a lot of police activity around this, yeah. So, in a sense, we were still robbing. A lot of people got nicked, yeah. You know, a lot of people got nicked. So I started working with the South London people, Jason Lawler. You know, I got nicked with Jason Lawler. Don't know if you know Jason.
Yeah, I've met Joe. I met him in Swell.
Yeah, I got nicked with Jason on this, right? So you know, I started working with the Bermondsey lot, the South London lot. Yeah.
Okay, so what was the plan on the day? Obviously, you end up getting convicted. So can you talk about it? What were you set out to do that day?
the truth is, because I was saying about the environment with all the different stuff that was happening with family members and people around me, there was a lot of different observation that had been going on for 2 years on different people. And one of the things about them days, or when you're doing that, is you're constantly walking into other people's observation and you don't even know it. And this is a big case of a lot of people getting nicked. You know, this is very important because that flying squad at that time, Albert Patrick, right? I mean, you know, the Ghost Squad went in there after 4 years into my sentence. Interrig approach, they found fit-up kits, they were shooting people, you know, they shot Starsky, Elton John, all them people, they were shooting people, they was putting fit-up kits on people. In my case, we screamed fit-up, because they moved, you know, they put shotgun cartridges in my pocket, they put a stocking mask in my thing, you know, they put a glove on the thing where the shots was fired, you know, and all this. They moved evidence. So 4 years after this, I got all the paperwork. Because we went not guilty, we was one of the cases that they looked at for them moving evidence and fitting us up.
What year was that?
Early 90s, 91.
They got nicked, them old builders, didn't they?
Yeah, but they got nicked after, Marvin. This is what I'm saying. Rig Approach was notorious then for fitting everyone up and planting evidence. Albert Patrick. It's all in books and everything. It's all out there. It's common knowledge. So I think it was about 5 years after it come on top for them.
Yeah, because all my pals got released.
Absolutely.
They all got released. About 9 of them all got released and got 100, 200, 300 grand compo.
Absolutely.
I remember that.
So
they set them up. They basically booted the door off. The old bill booted the door off a drugs house, but the drugs house was cameraed up, and then they got cameraed up nicking all the graft. And then basically when they got nicked, they had to go back to all the cases that
these guys been involved in.
Yeah, and
that
everyone
was,
got out.
That was hooky.
Yeah.
Especially the Scream Fit Up. We Scream Fit Up because you know they'd fitted us up, me and Jason, right? So that was that, yeah, and you know, it was a ready eye. It was an ambush. They'd watched us on surveillance that day on a build-up, looking at different things, right? You know, and the truth was with that day, because a lot of my friends and that had got nicked, we was kind of out in the cold a little bit and was looking over old kind of work, you know, that we hadn't done. We was kind of in it really up to that point. Usually we'd be planning much ahead. And we was on the back foot with this. I was on the run, you know, all this kind of stuff. So that was the dynamic, you know. And we walked into it, there was shots fired. You know, I really thought I was going to be killed that day, you know.
So you fired shots at the police?
I crossed the road. It was a place, a counting house, where they was counting all the different money that was coming from different betting offices in this place. Like I said, we was going over old work as such, and I was on the run and all this. But they'd followed us to different things, looking at tom shops and all these different things during the day. For the possession of the firearm, I got a home leave, and I didn't go back, Marvin, because I'd had my son Sid. He was just born, and you know what? I wanted to go back. You know, I really did. I wanted to go back, but the way everything happened at that time, I didn't end up going back. So
after the day, you obviously got remanded, and then a few months down the line, talk to me about the day you got sentenced, or the court date when you got sentenced.
The flying squad, you know, these ones that was crooked, that was the first thing. There was this game with them, you know, we're going to put you away for 18 years and all this. But they was actually taking us to the court. I went to Lehman Street first, high security police station there. But they was taking me to Bow. There was snipers on the roof. They was coming with a 38 Smith & Wesson. They was taking us personally to and from the court, which is strange, right? But they was.
Not that they weren't strange.
Well, you know,
first appearances, man. We always got taken by police.
Yeah, but the flying squad, yeah. But they wouldn't keep it up for too long, would they, Marvin? That was the thing.
Until you got what was it? You go first appearance, second appearance, and once you got committed.
That's about right.
Once you got committed, they stopped coming. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's about right. But you know, it seemed to go on for a long time with us, right? And it's the same thing. And
because you got to take into account as well, you'd absconded, so they don't want you getting away. So they're thinking, fuck, letting him go to court. We're taking him, because back in the day then, right? Because now we're talking our years, right?
Yeah.
we went. There weren't sweat boxes. It was coaches. Do you know what I mean?
it?
Yeah, you go from prison to prison in coaches. Because all my pals got off a coach in '94.
Gary Staggs.
Staggsy, yeah.
Yeah, they
No,
probably screwed it up
he was
for
at my
everyone else.
he was the best man at my wedding, Gary Staggs.
You know what?
Is he still about him?
it's-
He was the best man at my wedding,
Your
Gary
character's
Staggs.
unfolding now, son.
Friends of the naughty ones.
Gary was one of the older lot from our plot.
Naughty.
He was wild. Right? Gary was wild. He was wild. He was unhinged.
Unhinged.
He was unhinged. He was unhinged.
But me and Gary, you know, he was best man at my wedding, right?
Yeah.
That was in Whitemore, in the Irish Fizzes, by the way. We was all in
So
there.
that was 94, 95.
Something like, I got married in prison, yeah.
Yeah, because I was with Gary when he escaped.
Yeah.
He escaped, and then we was with him.
Him and Nat Lee, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was
Nat
about
Lee,
9 of them on the bus. Wasn't
Yeah,
there?
and they
On the
wrapped them
coach.
all up, and they...
the
Things he
cover,
told me that they found in the security file.
Yeah. And
He
he-
said, with these people are saying, you found...
Yeah, he was away for
So
a
what are
while.
you saying about me? See what these lot are saying about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
We
told
had-
me.
we had
Shocking.
We had them files for ages as well.
Shocking. Okay.
So talk to me about the day of when you actually got sentenced, Stephen. Like I said, you just had a young boy who was how old at this point? How old were you? And
God, I was early 20s.
Early
24,
20s.
How old are you
something
now,
like
Steve?
that. 49.
So you're a year older than me then, yeah?
Right, okay,
So,
yeah.
it was all around the same time. So I'm actually, because I'll be honest with you, Mike, before this podcast, I've been asking a lot of the older lot if they knew you, right? And a lot of the older lot that I asked didn't, right? But now with the Lawler and the Staggsy connection,
that.
I now understand why these other lot would never have heard of you at that stage, because we were just unhinged and unhooked, mate, and up to some crazy stuff. So yeah, I'm glad I've got, because it's been bugging me, the connections. I know everyone, right?
Well, you got plenty now, haven't you?
I've
You know,
got
we're you know, but we're very insular as well. It ain't about, oh, look at me, or, you know, I need to know everyone, and all. It's the opposite of that. Yeah. You know, but there you go, yeah.
so to go back to the day you got sentenced, it must have felt like your world was crashing down as such when you obviously got the 3 that you did, and then you got the 14 on that day, was it?
Yeah, do you know what? It's a fucking funny thing, but you know, in the trial we went on, we tend to do majority. They come back, so you know, they whooped it up us for sure. We got 69 years, and they stood us up, and the court was all these big people coming to the court. There's probably all the Masons in there that worked it all out in advance. It was that kind of thing. And I looked at Jay, and he stood up for a minute. I see his head shake, just for a minute. But I was, you know, it's crazy. But I stood there, and I always knew I was going to get it. I don't know how I fucking knew, but I always knew I was going to get a lump of bird, which is crazy.
So you prepared yourself prior to you
I thought, well, this is it. And I mean, I'd gone through all that trauma and madness of the case, and it hardens you at that point, because you have to survive. You know, you have to look after yourself, and it's you know, you lose a lot of weight, and that just the stress of the trials. I've seen people's hair go grey overnight. Have you ever seen that? That's quite something on a trial. Couple of days.
A couple of people in the scrubs went grey.
I've never seen anything like that before. I'm talking about a couple of days, someone would go from black hair or dark hair, completely grey.
I'm trying to think who that was, you know.
Stress, isn't it? The people
It's
right
the
through at that
stress.
time.
It's the stress. Of course it is.
So talk to me about you obviously just had a young boy, the relationship with the mother at this time there, is that obviously just completely disintegrated as you're in jail and the court cases and stuff like this?
Unfortunately, yeah. You know, I've always tried to do, you know, the right thing, and you know, I've wonderful children now, 3, and one of the worst things, if they ask me about it, do I regret anything? It's them. It's not having the time. That time is gone. Where, you know, they deserved a father and stuff like that. So there's no getting out of that.
Yeah, that's my biggest regret, not being there for my kids.
There's no getting out of that one.
There's no excuse for it.
Yeah.
But and I'll give you the example now. Like, I've got 2 younger girls, 12 and 13, right? Now, I couldn't look them in the face with an excuse if I went to prison. There's nothing I could tell them. But when I was growing up in that sort of normalised madness of insanity or insane behaviour, me providing financial respite and materialistic acquisition for my kids was fulfilling my job, because where we come from, we had nothing. Right? So me giving my kids all I never had made me feel like a good dad. So I just drove towards materialism and money. So being in prison or out of prison, as long as my kids got money to buy what they needed, I was a good dad. But because of the normalisation of my trauma and the insanity, I never see the detriment that I was causing my kids at that stage of my life.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
And I only see that effect now because of the connection I have with my younger children and the connection I have with my older children. I know my older children love me, but I know deep down in their heart, they hold that, well, you weren't here for me. And you know you could have done better for me. And you mustn't have loved me. They must have that feeling. And that's something that's hard to deal with as a grown man, knowing how much I actually love them. The thing that hurts is them not understanding why I done what I done. Because they can't understand the madness of our insanity because we were so far removed from normal. Do you know what I mean? So, did you have the similar experiences with your kids?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. The exact same thing. I mean, the younger ones now, you know, I've got a 28-year-old, Sid. He's a good boy. You know, he idolises his father, but he has that, you know, because there was a chunk there, then, you know, I know he does. And
Has he got kids?
he does, Ronnie. He's got one boy, Ronnie.
So now, this is what he is. Now he's got that comparison. Do you know what I mean? He'll be like, well, I wouldn't have done that. Why would you do that, Dad? And that's the thing that really hurts me. Do you know what I mean? My boy ain't got kids yet, so I know I've got that to come and I've got to deal with that because it's like when I have kids now, I look at my kids and think, how can my dad beat me the way he beat me? How can he do that? I couldn't do that to my baby.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that to my baby. So I've got what he's been through to come with my boys, my oldest kids. I've got a 28, a 23 and a 21-year-old. And all three of them are going to have a different relationship with their kids where they're going to resent me for what I done to them. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I've got to sort of be ready for without reacting or like being negative with it. But I've got to take it on the chin because I wasn't there and they're only at right to have that feeling towards me. So me, I've got work to do in a few years. Do you know what I mean?
This is the thing. This is the real stuff, Marvin, right? Yeah. For us, especially now that where we're at in our lives, having gone through so much trauma, but, you know, metamorphosized and transformed with all that experience into directing it into building and wonderful stuff and trying to stop the trauma. But that's the real life practical stuff that is what it is. You know, my response to that is to be as good a father as I can now, to be as good a role model as I do now, to build as much as I can so they can have a kind of protection and a better view of life and a better direction of life and knowledge, experience, people, places and things that I did.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about the prison system a little bit. After you got that big stretch, I'm guessing your mindset was not in the right place at all. And talk to me about what jail you're in after the court case and how things panned out for you on the big stretch.
When people ask me, what prisons did you go to, Christian, I say, what prison didn't I go to? Because there were just so many. You know, I mean, I've done Parkhurst twice. I was a Cat A, so I've done full Sutton. Twice, 3 times. Franklin
28
twice.
days, 28 laydowns, 28-day laydowns.
Pretty much. Yeah. Sometimes I'll be in a prison, I think about 2 years was about the longest. I had really itchy feet. And just the manner of it, the way it was, there's a lot of violence in there, same thing, and the way we was, they'd move you. You know, carry different stuff like that. But we had our own kind of unit, but they'd keep fucking with you and moving with you to break you.
Let's have it right.
You know what I mean?
They don't fuck you. What happens is we fuck about. Right, and when we fuck about and we expect to be left alone, they don't leave you alone. That's the reality.
It is the reality.
It's the reality. So he was moving about, and because he was fucking about in there, he had to. And now he's mentioned them names, I know how he was fucking about. Because everybody I know has been on that journey, has fucked about along. Like I got moved around, and I'll be honest, I got moved around most of the jails for controlling the drug culture. So I never lasted long in any jail because of drugs. A lot of my friends and the friends of mine you've mentioned was all heavily into drugs. So at what age did you get into drugs and what age did you stop taking drugs? The people you've mentioned and the characters, like, and the birds, we've walked the same path, I believe.
Absolutely. Look, the truth of it is, I got into drugs really early on. They say with an addict, addiction, it comes early. With me, it absolutely did, which was part of why I felt different as well. They say this as well about addicts. So anyway, cocaine was my main thing. I was crazy man on this, right? But,
Especially hanging about with Jack. I used to have a few giggles with Jack, to be honest with you.
Jack's a blinder. He really is. He's a very good friend, and I've been through crazy madness with Jack. I really have.
He's changed over the years as well.
He has. He's done so much work like we do.
Yeah.
At the real hard stuff, grassroots level, knowing what it is.
Do you still speak to him now?
All the time. Got his number there,
Yeah. I want to speak to him.
We speak to him all the time, yeah. I speak to him the other week, wasn't I, Jack? Yeah, the other week.
Just before I got shot, I think I spoke to Jack. I was coming back from Spain doing bits and pieces, and I bumped into him down the West End, down the Tin Pan and that. Yeah. Did you have to frequent the Tin Pan?
The Tin Pan, down, not really, to be honest with you. No.
Okay.
No, not really. But I know the Tin Pan.
But
yeah.
And talk to me. Obviously, we're trying to put people off what prisons are like and stuff. So talk to me about a bit of violence or people get in jail. People.
Look, you don't have to put people off. It is fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
Right. It is horrendous. You're talking about, in the prison system I was in, I used to have to go out, and I went out with Stagsy many times as well with this shit, going out with magazines around us there. 2 knives, not one, maybe even 3 or 4, just in case it got really bad and we got stuck. Because it is just madness. Why would you want to live like that? Are you scared? Of course you fucking are. It's do or die. But you just have this way. This is what we've done. We went forward, we didn't go back. It's just the way it is. It is horrendous. You're wedging your door, you're talking about people, they sly you when you're on the carsy. They're not going to come when you're strong. They'll come when they can get you at your weakest moment. And it's the ones who can smile in your face the most. I'll be the ones who are setting you up for it.
Yeah.
This is a horrendous way, to live. Not to mention, you're eating shit.
Yeah.
I was sent to places, I was so disruptive, I was sent to places like the CRC in Woodhill. Yeah. I went to Hull, special unit, there with everyone, Kevin Brown, Alan Lord, everyone was there, all friends of mine, right? And, and then I went to...
How's he doing nowadays, Kevin?
I haven't seen...
I was away with
Kevin
him
for a lot of years.
Kevin's
in a wonderful.
I was away with him in 2002, and then he got out, and I ain't heard about him since he got out. The last I heard, he got nicked again, I think.
He got nicked with
Billy Tobin, some of it.
Yeah, that's it. Billy Tobin, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if he's out.
I don't know if he's out. I hope he is. So
you asked me the other day, was there
very
anybody
good friend of mine
that I really respected in prison? He was one of them, Kevin.
Yeah,
Kevin was
solid.
Mate, he was man. Put it this way, I do rowing, right, on the rowing machine now, right, and I do 300 metres in less than a minute. And, right, what Kevin got me on was 1,000 metres, right, 1,000 metres under 3 minutes 40. Right, and I'm glad to say now, right, if you watch this, Kev, I'm up to 3 minutes 10 seconds, son. So I get 1,000 metres done on a rowing machine in 3 minutes 10 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Which is phenomenal speed. So certain things that I do with my fitness and sort of gym stuff comes from people like Nozza. Do you know what I mean?
Nozza, yeah.
They're the ones who got me on it, on the units. They're the ones who train like animals, and I
Yeah.
wanted to be like them. Do you know what I mean? Because they were hard-bodied, like never stood backwards from the screws, like stood up against anybody. Do you know what I mean? He was a very powerful man, and I really respected him because of his toughness throughout the prison system and the way he done his bird. I liked his character, his personality, and his morals through doing bird, and I gelled with Kevin really well on the unit and that, So I'm fond of Kevin. I'm always sort of curious to how he's getting on and where he's at with his life, Because like
same thing,
like
yeah.
you said, we're
Kevin,
all sensible people, we're all good people.
Kevin
make the wrong choices.
Kevin had a lot of class.
Too
you have
much
to think
class,
about it.
man.
But it's all of them things that you said, and if you're watching Kevin, he will remember when we was going. I have to say that I have many good experiences with Kevin, right? He was you know, a real guy, the real thing. But you know, when we would go into there, you know, when we would go in and do them circuits, if he's watching, I remember, you know, in the unit, I'll tell you, with Frankie Burley, bless him, you know, he got shot, he got killed, Frankie Burley in Leeds, right?
Was it the
solid.
The rowing?
You're talking about with the
power clean. I still do it now.
With all of them, right?
So we do the power, you do the rowing, the power clean, and the cycling. You do a minute on each. A minute on, you got to like that.
But you know where it will be? We'd go in there and we'd say, right, you know, last man standing, and believe in me, no one would be standing. You go on and on
until the bell went.
And on. It's a superhuman stuff, and everyone's there, isn't they?
But
no one wants to be the one who see you go on.
And that's what I've still got now with my training. So when I go training with all my young,
it's the best way to train. Yeah, you learn me many things, Kevin.
They can't believe it.
Personal training is the most militant of anyone.
I've been doing this since I was a kid.
And I was exactly the same. I'm still the same. I'm trying to get back to it, but I always train.
So you ain't still the same now, so not with
that. Do you know? Look, do you know what it is?
Yeah, good food.
Absolutely. But listen, no. To be fair, look, I still train, but there's a condition there.
Yeah.
That's a little bit thing with it. It's not just that. I mean, I've had to change everything, so it's not just that. There is a condition.
Get on these diets.
I'm on the veg, and I'm on.
Mrs. did say you're changing.
The whole thing's changed because of it.
Changing. So she said you haven't changed, but you're changing. Nothing but the truth is, Steve. Nothing but the truth.
A process.
Well, absolutely,
it's a process.
I'm willing to learn the right stuff.
It's that
always have been.
Right? Yeah. So you break up. You got to have it for Saturday week. We're going for Saturday. You got to have steak. Go have steak.
Yeah.
Go have this. Go have that. And that's just the programming. We was programmed to have all this sort of opulence and all these materialistic things that mean nothing, but put you in a status quo within an environment.
During your years in the system and when you're inside, did you come, any murders or anything like this happen? Anyone?
Look, I see a few. There was one guy, you know, he was playing his music downstairs, Long Lantern. He was a dread guy, and they're down there, all the big music pumping, and a couple of people, you know, I knew them upstairs. They was the same. And come down and went, look, mate, turn the music down for us. We a blood clot, big night we pulled out and all that. They went, all right. You know, to come down, and you know, this went on for a little bit, and then they, you know, of course they measured him up. You know, when they went down and knowing what, you know, he showed his hand what he was gonna do. He come out, done the same thing again, but then they had the knife. Then they got someone to claim his hand. They went in, bang, 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 bang. You know, with a knife. You know, he went in. You know, he died in there. There was another nonce in there. You know, this was a guy who killed him, who got kind of nicked with me for trying to smuggle guns into the prison. What they were saying, right, Marvin? There was a big thing about this. We was cat A's, of course they was fitting.
Where was that? Parkhurst or Whitemore? I'm a Long Lantern.
This was in Wandsworth. This was in Wandsworth. They was trying.
Weren't scrubs.
No. They was trying to say the brief was bringing it in and all types of bullshit. Then someone else was doing it. Then the screw was bringing it in, and it was fucking crazy madness. Anyway, we all got swagged. You know, and you know, I mean, that was not a good thing, obviously.
Was you ever in Scrubs?
Yeah, I was in Scrubs.
They found a gun in Scrubs when I was there. They shut the
Yeah. This wasn't this.
Staggy was in there.
Yeah, this
and then Swellside, when I was in Swellside, there was a shut the prison down. Yeah, for a gun. It was all nuts back there. Do you remember? Was it Leroy Weatherman? Do you remember him? He was a guy I seen nearly get killed. I was standing right next to him, and someone walked up beside him and just put their arm around him like that. I'm standing where you're standing. Walked up beside him and what's happening? Because it was all spikes back then.
Spikes, yeah.
I've seen one of them.
They just spiked him.
Spikes, yeah.
I see him spike. The spike went in there. I see him go. So I'm looking. So he's looking. You're me now, right? And I see him go. And the spikes went come right out that side. And he was like, and he ran up to the office, and then the ambulance helicopter come in, took him out. Leroy Weatherman, a mixed race kid that was from South London.
Weatherman. Yeah. I know his dad, Joe.
Yeah, he nearly got killed.
Very well. There was a lot of.
But that's what it was all back then. You weren't getting stabbed. You was getting oiled up. It was just very, violent environment, prison back then. It weren't an easy place to be, was it?
This is what I'm saying. You know, so anyone out there who thinks this is a good thing to go to prison, have a think about some of that stuff. Believe you me, you will.
It's not even
to survive in an environment like that.
The prison. It's not just the violence. It's the degradation stuff and
it's all of it.
The stuff you got to shove shit up your ass for days. All day, things in and out your ass, and the more powerful you become in prison, the bigger the parcels you've got to stick up your ass. And then in the 90s, when the phones come about, it's just ridiculous. Like, you got your phones, gear, money, all up your ass, and you're supposed to be sensible. Like, imagine that. Imagine secreting like parcels like answers and phones and gear up your ass, and dealing it. Talk like you're dealing with you're trading with shit-smelling products.
I mean, I had the bank in there, don't they?
Yeah,
that's the bank.
I had a screw, right? There was a screw in there. He got nicked in the end, right? But he was doing a lot of stuff. And I remember he come one day, right? And he come in the morning, you know, opened the door, put the parcel in the sink. It was like fucking like that, Marvin. There was 3 phones in there. Yeah. You know, there was other gear and bits in there. It was being chopped up between a few people, and closed the door again. At the start, I thought they was fucking setting me up, right? But, you know, I knew, obviously, and then I had to go out and, you know what I mean? But this was the kind of thing, yeah. You know, and then we'd try and get the smaller fucking phones because of what you were saying there in them days, yeah. Crazy environment, really. I'm very happy it's behind me.
Same here.
So if anyone who's
my life.
in jail at the moment, like say, we're not advised it. Anyone who's in jail, it's clicked to them. They no longer want to be involved in this life. They want to get out. They want to be on the straight now. What's the best way to get through a jail sentence without getting in any trouble, without getting in any conflict with people? What advice would you give to people? They want to turn their life around. They want to.
The best advice I can give: don't position yourself for jail in the first place.
Yep.
That's the best, and that's about people, places, and things. It's about having your own mind. It's about having your own art. It's about knowing what's right, not being propelled into stuff. It's about honouring people, respecting things, knowing that there's so much more than what maybe you think or goes on in your fucking head, right? There are many options, and this is the thing. We can be whatever we want to be, literally. We can. See, the middle bit is we have to work for it. And when you start to give and start to keep doing a pattern of the right stuff, you will create that reality, and you'll invite people, places and things to help you on that journey. If you choose a bad journey, it's going to be the same way. You're going to invite them people who's going to be doing that, and you're going to be running with that. So this is the main thing. It's about the people you're around. It's very important. It can be very, very hard. It's all right saying that. It's very hard, you know, in inner cities and for certain traumas and all that. But you have to be strong to this. You have to be strong.
What I would advise anybody, that goes to prison, right, do the opposite of what I've done. Go to education. Educate yourself. Do your what's it called? What's the university stuff?
Yeah, educate yourself. You know, there's so much more out there.
Mate, I know people got degrees and all that in prison.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I never understood it because people, like, all the long-termers that had time for me, right? They say, Marv, what are you doing, son? Get a degree, do this. And I think, where am I going fucking education? If I ain't getting education, read a book, you dickhead. I'm getting a parcel in, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We're having a party Friday, I've got to get here. Do you understand? So I was just focused on drinking, sniffing, partying, taking gear, having a laugh, like being disruptive. Do you know what I mean? Getting parcels in, selling parcels, moving parcels, getting products. So my world in prison wasn't education. And to my own detriment, that became, because every time I came out, I didn't educate myself any further, so I had to go back to what I'd done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas if you get an education in prison and you can come out with a degree, if you're doing a long enough sentence, you can come out with a degree, and there's plenty of people. John McVicker, argument's sake, came out.
Many options.
People come out and be lawyers.
Look
I've done the same thing, you know.
Look at me today.
You know,
what I mean? So we've all come out.
Anything you want to be. There's a film with this book as well, and so much more. A wonderful life, you know, stuff you do, wonderful stuff. A happy life.
Street. I've been
a
to
progressive
Downing
life.
Street. How could I get invited to Downing Street?
Change.
Do you understand? Marvin Herbert got invited to Downing Street, so that's because I'd started to educate myself at the later part of my life, you know. And that's the only advice I'd give anybody going to prison. Fuck the landings, fuck the gangster shit, get into education, educate yourself, and leave prison with time well spent,
With a skill.
with a degree and some form of education. Otherwise, you're just wasting that time in there because you come out pickled or addicted to drugs anyway. Do you know what I mean?
You see,
This is a good point to get to.
yeah,
obviously
because
when
I've
you
got something I want to add to that. Look, I've always said, and time is our most valuable commodity.
Yeah.
Money comes and goes. People, places, and things, they come and go. We know that. Even this time, when it's gone, we don't get to get that back. That's how valuable it is. Tomorrow's not promised to no one. It's going to run out, and we don't know how long of it we've got. What could be more precious than that? But the thing is, look, people can be anything they want to be. They really can. So it's about, it is about empowering themselves to know that they can do so much better. They can do so much better, and use that time well. Do you know what I mean? It takes courage, but you know what? Life is hard anyway.
Well, see, when you say it takes courage, right? I just think it's not courage; it's just intelligence. Because
Intelligence.
For argument's sake, right?
Yeah.
But I'm honest. So, a lot of my problems, a lot of my issues was drug related, right? So, if I weren't taking the drugs or partying as hard, I wouldn't have made them stupid mistakes. Do you know what I'm saying? So, I can't speak for every other villain on the planet, but I know 98% of serious offenders have had some kind of drug issues throughout their life, whether they're in prison or out of prison. Do you know what I mean? Or to get over prison. Some people have never took a drug in their life. They go to prison and they get on drugs in prison because it's just a way of dealing with that environment, right? But fundamentally, if everybody focused on educating themselves out of the social landscape that they're from, then they won't even enter into that world. But because we're desperate to belong, desperate to be loved, desperate to be seen, we try to take the short route, the shortcut.
And this is the thing. Is look, just that last thing I want to say in the back of that is, and what I've seen in prisons and growing up on the street and all that is, the people who I know, who I grew up with, who do all this stuff, they could have been anything. They are so talented.
We are. That's what I'm saying.
They're so talented that if they just that intelligence.
You're getting a Nobel Peace Prize. Do you know what I mean? You're in Sunday spreads. You're in magazines. Like you got books. You got movies coming out. So what would have been the potential if we'd have focused 30 years ago onto something positive? Where would you be today?
Absolutely.
So for anyone who thinks that crime might be the easy way, or they can get a quick jump up by doing this, and this might be able to help them even get into legit stuff. Like you guys have both suffered the consequences. Crime is not the easy way. It turns out to be the hard way and the very long way.
Yeah.
And it ends up, like you
100%.
say, the thing that's most important in this world is time, and you end up having to sacrifice so much of your time by trying to take the easy option or the wrong option by being misguided and going down the wrong path.
Misguided and partially groomed.
Yes.
Right, because the youngsters get used and abused by their older lot to risk their liberty a little bit more than they would. And that's what I found growing up. And that's what made me sort of escalate throughout the criminal world. Because I'd see, he's fucking using me. He needs me. Fuck him, he's an idiot. I ain't going with him. So then I'd go on to the next person that was above this person, or the next person that was above this group. Do you know what I mean? And then when I actually got to the top of the ladder myself, that's when I realised, wow, this ain't even worth it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't. And that's the beautiful thing about people like us now.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Because we actually will go back and tell the kids, look, we were mugs, mate.
You know what kids were like, what you guys were like in your teenagers? It's only people like you guys who can actually speak to them, they're going to listen. It's not someone on the straight and narrow who's done this and that. When someone's on a troubled path, they're not going to listen to the normal Tom, Dick and
You
Harry.
need an authority, that's right. They say,
you just need
like telling me, you ain't fucking done anything, right?
You need
Do you know what I mean?
But experience, I think, is very important as well.
100%. But these are real issues, man. This is not, and another thing is, that grooming thing, we should call it send him out there, right? Send them out there, or you send out there, which is basically what it is. You wish you lived a little bit more, to be more involved, to be more light, to get more money, more readings, more kudos, more.
It's all the vicious cycle of crimes. The youngers don't want to say no to the elders, and then
the elders say, "Who can we get for this job? Oh no, get that little lunatic.
Yeah.
I'll get that little black cunt. He's a little. I don't matter if he gets it. We'll be all right. Just get him to do this. Get him to do that."
Like I said, after the big stretch in jail, unfortunately something didn't change. You came out and you're still involved in crime. And talk to me about this?
I got released off the long sentence from Belmarsh prison. I was meant to go in the morning. I was still a category A, but they give me this big story basically to keep me, and they released me with the courts in the evening. And I went out there, and there was Obbo straight away, and I tell you what, this was 203, right?
I just went away.
And I'll tell you why, because I had a power mine in there, Chrissy Pearman, right? Chrissy Pearman was in there, and
Chrissy's dead now.
I did. He went away. I don't.
One of the Pearmans has died. Or was it the young Pearman?
No, it was the younger one. The younger one. Darren, unfortunately, that was terrible. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of the older one I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Chris.
Chrissy was.
Yeah, Chris. Chris, I was away with Chris then. Another good guy, and
another wild
I come out and there was observation on me straight away. Because I was a cat A as well. So they was all out there. And they'd put it off, let me in the morning. I was meant to go in the morning so they could get the team ready. I mean, I know that now. Because afterwards, one of the screws in there in Belmarsh said to Chris, they said, "Yeah, do you know that Stephen Gillen?" He went, "Yeah." He says, they was all out there when he went out there, when they let him go the other day. All the police out there. So it come back to me. And I put two and two together and I knew. And do you know what? It was so crazy. Because I'd done 11 years and 9 months in one lump. And it was like all that trauma, all that fucking crazy madness and torture. And it was like coming out of one door into the other. And them 12 years had just disappeared. And I was straight in the middle of it again. It was fucking surreal, I'm telling you. So, I went out and, I was kind of involved again. And it was very tough. It was very hard. I was institutionalised. As they say, it takes you a couple of years to get into a sentence like that. And it does. It takes you a couple of years or even more at the other end because you're institutionalised.
Now the vans have all changed. 2002, 2003, you couldn't even rob the vans no more.
The world had moved on.
It's not that
but the world...
it's not that you couldn't rob them, you couldn't get in them. Prior to 2002, you could get into the vans and get a lot more money. But 2002, they changed the vans where you can't get into them no more.
Is that when people start just going for the...
Just getting the boxes, yeah. And that's when I retired. I started, fuck this, it's not worth it for a box.
Diet packs, boxes.
Diet packs and all that stuff. And that's what made me stop doing all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And that's why when I come out in 2006, I went straight to Spain. That's why I fucked off to Spain, because you couldn't earn money here. And that's why I went to set my flag in Spain. Yeah, mad.
So, obviously, like I said, you did the 12-year sentence, and then you were only out for... couple of years, wasn't it, before you ended up
couple of years. I come out, I was over Amsterdam, for a while, all through there, Europe, coming back and forth, but I ended up, I got nicked with my brother, Bethnal Green Road, and they just flew on us, and I got nicked possession of a firearm.
Yeah.
Got nicked possession of a firearm. Back on the book again, right? Back on the book again.
Was that 2003?
No, this was about 2005. Yeah, 2005.
I was just getting ready to get out.
And that was horrendous because it's like your worst nightmare. I've come through that, and of course I've gone back. And that was the last time I went away.
So something like say you just under 12. You'd only been out for a matter of months, a couple of years, and then suddenly again you must have thought at that point there somebody clicked, and you thought, I've only been out for a minute. There's 2 years out, 12 years in. I'm going to be away for another 2 years now.
It's horrendous, but the truth was, there's been a lot of questions asked about this. That firearm at that time, that was for protection. It weren't, make of it what you will, right? But
was you smoking gear back then?
I was in and out of, I was still partying, I was still doing that stuff then,
I ask is because it's only under the influence of drugs that make you carry a gun. Because with logic, you think, I've just done 12 years, I ain't fucking carrying that, you mad. But where the calmness of the drug makes you invincible, do you know what I mean? You think, I'll be alright, fuck that, we're doing this, we're doing that. So you're detached from reality. Do you know what I mean? That's why I asked, was you still taking drugs then?
Yeah, you are. Look, it comes to the stage, so I went away, 5 years I got there for possession for that, but you've done half of it then, they changed the law then, by then, before it was 2/3, we'd done it, it was half again, right? So, 2.5 years out of it, give or take. And that's when when I come out, that was it for me. I mean, I was even sectioned, because I went up my nut. I went up my nut, I thought people was going to kill me, so I was sectioned.
Right.
But they got me well, really, really quickly. Something changed in me after that, Marvin, as well. It was like that big mad point where I was just crazy had kind of softened. Where I was on 6 bulbs, maybe they turned a couple off, but there was changes here, right? There was changes here, and I was very happy for them changes. But I was happy. I went to rehab. I've done all that, 12 steps, 12 years clean now, completely clean of everything.
Congratulations.
Well done, that's
12
great.
years.
Well done, Stephen.
No, thank you. And 12 years, yeah.
And going from where he was to where he is, considering what he was into, because I know the people that he was around and the levels that they played at, I can empathise with that 12 years clean, and that's just amazing. It's well done. It's really, really well done.
Not many people recover from where you've been and where you guys have been and the places you've been and these big sentences. Not people.
It's a Nobel Peace Prize.
It's hard to ever get out of that cycle, isn't it? At that point there, when you're in hell, it's hard to change.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So talk to me about when you released, like you say, something clicked in you and your journey from that last sentence to the point you are now today, the 12 years clean, the monkey puzzle tree. Like I said, the links are going to be below. And hopefully the film coming out in due course. And talk to me about what you're up to today.
Yeah, the screenplay's there. We've got the screenplay over there. I showed you. There's a lot of wonderful people attached to this script. Really influential people. We have the screenplay. We're into casting now. Big names. There's been big names. I can't say too much about it. It's been all over the press. I've been talking to Tom Hardy, Christian Bale. There's all
Fantastic.
big budget. 30 million pound budget with this film. It's all over the tabloids. It's so it's very exciting for me. Look, it was probably one of the only films, Marvin, that was positioned even before the book was written, because what I'd done is when I turned my back on this life, and I realised, I could have known my friends for 25 years and they'd be the ones to set me up to get me killed. I thought, I'm not in this. This is not for me. And the truth is, even though I played that role right to the best, it was never fucking me. Really. Do you know what I mean? I always had a good heart qualities. And like I'm saying about where I had that first instruction from when I was in Ireland. Yeah. So when people say to me, yeah, absolutely. But no, I just had the courage, the opportunity, and the circumstance to find my way back to myself. I always had this in me, just like we do. It's not I've changed. It's just I had to unlock myself, uncode myself. I had to really give. I had to sort myself out. I had to keep going, even when I didn't know how to keep going. Baby steps turn into big strides. I'd done a business degree. I went to the London School of Business. I'd done a business degree. Okay. My family was in construction. We didn't have anything, digging roads. So I went from labourer to supervisor to having my own company in 18 months, out in the shit and the cold. Right? It's as simple as that. And I'm so happy I'd done that, because that forged me as an honest person, like everyone else, to be fucking human.
Be normal.
So yeah, that's a great message I want to send. Like, once you do get onto that right path, then things can happen, things can progress. You take that same
progress,
you take that same mindset.
Like you just said, 18 months to 2 years.
Exactly, no time. And you think about how much time was wasted.
It's nothing, is it? 18 months to 2 years is nothing.
30, 40 years bucking about trying to be a successful criminal. It amounted to nothing. And if I'd have spent 18 months, 2 years of educating myself, like if I'd have the first prison sentence, if I'd have got 2 degrees on that 5-year sentence,
come out being a lawyer.
Yeah, I could have come out and done anything. But I chose to be a villain, and I chose to run down that road, and I chose to be a lunatic. So the consequences was what they were,
Yeah, so like I said, the life of crime is literally a dead end. There's no happy endings. There's no happy ever after.
It's a mug's game. It is truly a mug's game, and if you like handling lots of money but not making anything, then that's the game to be in. Because all you do is
not keeping anything. That's what I'm saying. You're not ending up anywhere. Then that's the game. That's the game to be in. Absolutely.
If you like touching money,
touching money. That's all you do. Touch money. That's all you do. Touch money. Touch loads of money. That's all you do forever. Just touching loads of money.
So that's what you want to do. Go work in a bank and you haven't got a risk of going to jail.
There you go. And you can touch all the money you want. Do you know what I mean? But getting a trade, a decent trade, starting up a company. I don't encourage people to go and work. I encourage people to set their companies up, set up limited companies, develop something that can grow, and you'll never look back.
Yeah, try stuff, put the work in. Be the opposite of what, in many ways, I had to be the opposite of everything I was.
Yeah,
really.
same,
You know, I mean, that is the short version. The middle bit is sorting yourself out. And look, people say about success, right? You know, and they say, a good way to think about it is, look, you know, it's not 10 decisions, it's not 100 decisions, it's not 100,000 decisions. It's thousands and thousands of decisions, sometimes every hour, every minute, every day, over a long period of time. You know, they say it'll take a millionaire 7 years. If you have these statistics in your head, anything is possible. Okay, you go to university, that's 3 years. It's nothing. You know, we spent, you know, I'm the same, 35 years of trauma, of
3 years
madness.
down the block.
I don't even know how I'm here. That's the truth. That's a fucking miracle.
There must be something.
And him, he's the same.
Yeah, there is miracles.
So there's the evidence. On the other hand, anything is possible.
Yes.
So this is definitely the message I want to put out. I know Marvin's the same. And all the work, all the providence is there, and we work very, very steadily towards this every day, you know, to get this stuff out.
Well, like I said, you guys are fantastic examples for any children, anyone who's on that wrong path. Show them it's not the way to go. Look at these guys; they got as serious as it can get. Nothing good came out of it. Only bad, only negative, and this had to start again at a certain point.
Yeah.
Just get on that right path early. Avoid going down these things, and you're going to avoid a lot of headache, a lot of trauma, a lot of wasted time, which is the most important thing.
Drug addiction, prison, sort of neglect and abandonment is what you're going to get from crime.
Violence,
guaranteed, right? And then you're going to have added contributing factors such as violence, right? So violence isn't in every crime, but it becomes part of that existence, because the further you go up the ladder, the more money you make, you have to either be violent or employ violence to protect what you have. So eventually violence comes in the equation. It doesn't start with violence with some people.
But you can't avoid it.
It starts with people look at the money, but then it comes hand in hand.
Everything comes in hand. The money, the violence, the problems, the prison, and then the death. So that's what's guaranteed.
There's no way around this.
There's no way around it. And what's guaranteed if you get a job, what's guaranteed is that you won't go to prison, right, if you work sensibly and right for the whole time.
And you'll keep progressing, and you'll keep what you have. All you have to do is keep doing that, keep learning, keep growing.
Keep buying your houses. I mean, like, I've got young kids now that turn their lives around. One of them, I'm speaking to him next week, he's bought 2 houses, near enough mortgage free on one of them. That's what he told me today, and that's just for me turning his life around. I went 40 years in it, I don't even own a building. My missus and that, and my kids have got buildings, but I haven't got nothing. Do you know what I'm saying, Chuck?
Most criminals don't even have bank accounts, do they?
I never had a bank account until 2015.
Jesus.
I weren't allowed a bank account until 2015. Do you know what I mean? And that's just me. And I wasn't the biggest in England, so there's other villains that are living that life that are just in that same catchment, in that same environment, in that same cycle. But because they're normalised insanity, their environment is acceptable to them. And that's just where they stay, rather than changing their environment and then changing the person, which is what we can focus on, trying to get the youngsters to understand. It's about changing your environment, changing your choice-making processes, and changing your eating habits. It really does help. And even Daphne explained earlier how eating food will change you. They've got scientific proof in prisons that food diets actually change your behaviour. You know,
it's all education.
It's very linked. It's very scientific. There's real facts and statistics.
Like I say, it's an intelligence thing. Educate yourself, people. You educate yourself, you can't go wrong. You make better decisions in life.
You have a better life. You'll have a better existence. You'll have a better outcome. There's a whole a better existence. Do you know what I mean? Just doing the right thing.
We've got the thing over there. Do you want to get the peace thing over there? Get the peace thing and let's have a look. You know, and we can show because...
Let's have a look at this. Tell us what this is, Stephen, and tell us...
Ambassador for Peace, Universal Peace Federation.
when I changed my life, one of the things that I saw was I wanted to improve hundreds of millions of people's lives around the world. Now at that point, I didn't know what I'd have to do or how that would be possible. We're already on that path now. We're already on that path. Once you go on a good path, more is revealed. In life, more is revealed. Yeah. So then I knew, I'd have to learn business, conquer my own bit of business, be very professional at that, very successful at that, media, academic stuff and other stuff. Public speaking, I'm an award-winning public speaker. All of this stuff. But you learn that, to become, we're just about to open now the Stephen Gillen Foundation. Is me, Daphne, and a senior lawyer. Now, there's many people have tried to come into this. I've even been talking to the Lord Chief Chancellor. I have his number on that phone. Robert Buckland. He's the 5th most senior politician in the cabinet at the moment now. Who would have thought? He's in charge of the whole law. They used to take me round the back in prison like that. Get away, plague, with dogs. Get in there. So we are living history and living proof.
100%. So like I said, and people don't be daunted by this when you're on the wrong path. Take the first step. The first step, like they say, is the hardest when you start a new journey. Take the first step and it's only going to lead to more and more progression, but not in the wrong way, in the right way. And like I said, Stephen's living proof, Marvin's living proof of what can be achieved,
Of all of all the stuff we do, and people say, "God, that's really cool." We do it, yeah, but I'm a very grounded person, and I see so much more, and I don't let my head get taken.
So what did you have to do to receive that?
I went into prisons. I went to women's prisons. I went into men's prisons with forensic psychologists, for instance. I delivered a lot of talks in there, a lot of stuff. But I was doing a lot of work. I was on a board and I was a shareholder of a company who had a really innovative product in the open wound industry. I'm still a shareholder of that company, and this is what was saving thousands of lives in Africa. We was talking governmental level, presidential level with this stuff. The company's still active. A lot of stuff. I do a lot of humanitarian stuff behind the scenes. I was awarded this, but in the same year we get offered loads of initiatives, loads of stuff. Can
we talk about some of the stuff?
We're going to talk about a lot of things, Marvin. Really, we really are. I'll be very happy to do that. Very happy to hook you up with a lot of people, because this is what we're about: is improving the world and making things better. Just doing our little part of it. What we can do. Who are we? But we can do our little part of it. So and this was awarded to me. Daphne got one as well. But I was awarded. I was put up for the Sutton International Peace Prize before this, which is in Korea, and there's £1 million for the two winners of that, $1 million. Presidents have won that. That was another life-changing moment for me. Do you know why, Marvin? Because and I said to Daphne, and I was really cheerful. I was really emotional about it, because I suddenly realised that after all this stuff, all this bullshit, what it was or what it weren't, that this actually made my life worth living. Yeah. It actually made my life worth living.
And what did Daphne get her award for?
Oh, the same. All the wonderful stuff that she does. She's worked all the way through Europe. She lived in Germany for 18 years. She's an award-winning designer. She's built massive buildings all around the world.
Architect, designer.
All of that. She does all of that stuff. She's... She had a very, very successful soft furnishings, award-winning design shop and all that in Germany for many years. She's a magical person, She's my right arm, and we do wonderful things. So it's having these people around you is key.
So for anyone who wants to get in touch with you, Stephen, where can they find you? Where can they get in touch with you?
There's loads of stuff out there online, but
Website.
Google me even. Website is really easy. You can get me there. There's loads of content there. I always answer stuff and it comes through to the team. www.stephen with the PH Gillen GILLEN.com. Get me there. That's
social medias. Insta, Twitter, Facebook?
Not Twitter, all the rest of it is there, Facebook and all this stuff. They Google me with loads of stuff, so I'm sure they'll be able to. The website's the best way, they can put a message there.
Fantastic.
I'll always see it.
I'm sure you're going to get lots of people reaching out to you, because I think this has been fantastic today. Really enjoyed this. and hopefully the children can learn something from it and learn to go down the right path and not the wrong path. You live an example now of both ways it can go, the unsuccessful and now the successful path, and so learn from these guys. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Listen,
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. You're what, gentlemen, and thank you, Marvin.
That was fantastic.